are in for a blast. Anybody here do the Lockpicking Village yet? Awesome. This is Adrian Crenshaw. He is the founder of IronGeek.com. He is a pen tester at Trusted Sec right now. Adrian has been in the information security world for ever.
12 years?
12 years, and I bet you were doing stuff even before.
For about 3. But
that's what's incredible. Go look at his old talks and find out he wasn't in the InfoSec world. It's incredible. This is going to be a great talk. Everything that Adrian gets interested in, Adrian really gets interested in. And he decided he wanted to get into Bluetooth, hacking of Bluetooth locks. So please, without further ado, please welcome Adrian Crenshaw.
Thanks, Dave. All right, everybody. Well, you already know what the topic matter is, so let's say a few more things. About me, I run IronGeek.com. The videos for this particular conference will be up there shortly, as well as on archive.org. I'm just a geek with interest in InfoSec. I don't know everything. I just have time on my hands to learn a few things. So if I get something wrong, let me know. And on this subject matter, actually a good portion of this talk is going to be me talking about what I want to do on research on these Bluetooth locks, because I've dived into the physical on them, but there's some things about the protocols that I still need to do a lot of research on, and people who have more experience with Bluetooth and decompiling and working with APK files would help a whole lot. Also, I'm a senior information security at Trusted Sec and a co-founder of DerbyCon. Okay, a few thanks to various people. These are some of my lock gurus. If you ever want to learn more about lockpicking, check out all these people's materials. DOSman, he's kind of my number one lock guru. I went on my first physical penetration test, and after I got back from it, I was like, wow, this is some cool stuff. I enjoyed this, but I want to learn more about bypassing locks and so forth. Truthfully, in a lot of physical penetration testing, you don't really ever bypass a lock. You generally piggyback behind someone else and get in. But it's really impressive when you go up to someone's shred bins and show a client, oh yeah, here's your lock. It's kind of a fun thing to do. And also, he does other kind of physical access as well as all these guys. Then there's a Deviant Olaf. I'm not sure how Olam is pronounced Olaf, but I've been sure that it's Olaf. He's another lock guru. He's one of the big guys in Tool in the U.S. You'll see him out at DEF CON every year in the Tool booth. Also runs a company called Core Security. I ordered from them a bunch of elevator keys. You know what elevator keys are? These are fun things to have. Basically, you can throw an elevator into independent service mode by using the right key, and when you do that, it ignores all hall calls on the outside. You go to whatever floor you want, doesn't need to read your badge or anything, and there's only so many elevator manufacturers out there. So that key for one Otis elevator works on all sorts of other Otis elevators as well. Anyway, check out his talk, along with, I'm trying to remember the gentleman's name. Sergeant Payne. Anyway, it's great stuff. Shane Loss is his technical editor, and another guy who is probably vaguely involved with Tool, but also involved with Fools with DOSman. Doug Highweller and Jeff Moss are two another great lock gurus. And if you want to see some good talks on lockpicking, lock bypass, and lock history, check out Skylar Towns' talk. Actually, I think he's related in some way to maybe the inventor of the inventor of what we modernly consider a pin tumbler lock. The guy has a passion for locks, like some men have a passion for their wives, assuming they like their wives. And he talks lovingly about all sorts of things. So check out his talks. He does some very good historical talks on locks, and he's an expert lock picker. Okay, this talk is going to be about Bluetooth locks specifically. Ones you can open with your phone. And some people said, well, why would you want to do this? Like anything Internet of Things-ish, this is not Internet of Things since they're not directly on the Internet. They're interfacing via Bluetooth with your phone. There's advantages and disadvantages to it. One advantage is because you don't need the keys or the combo. Though some of them do have keys and combos, you don't need them. In theory, all you have to do is carry around your phone, and you can keep that. Also, you can assign or revoke access to others. If anybody runs a facility where you have to use physical keys, it's a bit of a pain in the ass to have to rekey something whenever someone leaves, just in case they copy the key. Yeah, you may have a do not duplicate label on your key. I own my own key duplicator, so unless it's something incredibly weird about the bitting, you're not going to stop me. The only way people do stop that by copywriting keys and making it so you have to go for the original manufacturer. Even then, you can sometimes get around that. But that ability to easily assign like digital tokens to people and say, now you can open this lock, is a pretty nifty thing. Another advantage of some of these locks that people are implementing is, since it's tied into your phone, they can use your phone for geolocation to say where that lock is, when it was opened. And that's going to be interesting in some of the TSA locks I have, where I have one now and one on order. And it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. This advantage, of course, is people will say it's added attack surface. Like anything where you add more technology to it, people talk about, well, it's no longer just a dumb lock, it has extra features, this is extra attack surface. That's true from a certain standpoint, but a lot of the Bluetooth attacks have been fairly limited, I'd say, so far, and you're also taking away one piece of attack surface, the keyway. You no longer necessarily have a key. Only one of these locks up here one of these Bluetooth locks actually has a key for it. So that makes it a little more difficult. Another disadvantage of these is eventually they do need power, as opposed to just a lock that can sit there forever as long as it doesn't rust. All right, the locks we'll be looking at are the quick lock, which is pretty nifty, but is probably one of the biggest flaws I have. It uses both Bluetooth and NFC cards to be able to open it. The default password for it, by the way, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You should probably change it if you get one. It has an auto unlock mode where basically I believe it sees your phone in a certain distance from it. You can press the button and have it open if your phone's in a certain distance. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Its biggest disadvantage is spring-loaded locking dogs, and we'll get into that in a bit. But let me give you a little closer look at it. This is my particular one. Whoa, falling over. Let's see. I don't know if I'll be able to hold this still enough to be able to see it. If you're ever wondering what happens if this thing loses power, you can actually take this little rubber shield off, and there's a micro USB port behind that. And the only ways to open this one are, well, official ways, are NFC cards or via Bluetooth. And it's got a little bitty application, which I'm going to try to bring up. And before I bring up the next one, I'm going to try to reboot my phone because I just recalled something. Some of this software is incredibly buggy. That would be my number one complaint about these. You press this button, and hopefully they see each other, and it's able to pair. Did you pair? Come on, do anything. It couldn't be under auto unlock, so I believe as long as this application is up and I press that button, it should auto unlock. And you can't quite hear it, but there's little motors in there that pull aside a couple of spring-loaded locking dogs. So it's asking me to find it. There we go. Unlocked. And now, for some reason, it's locked in the exact opposite direction of where I need it to be. So let me switch that back. I hope this is mostly visible. Unfortunately, with the lighting being what it is. All right, out. Yeah, put you back. But that's a quick lock, and it doesn't have a whole lot of features. You can add more locks to this, but you can change the password, but there's not a whole lot of extra features you can do on this particular lock. And I'm going to show why it's probably the easiest of these locks to bypass. I've concentrated mostly on physical so far. This is the Noki, or Noki. I believe Noki is the way they actually meant to pronounce it, because that E should have a little dash over it. And I'm not sure what language that is, but that does like an E sound, right? Like Noki. This needing no key. It has a single ball bearing, but it's ferromagnetic, meaning that it gets attracted by a magnet. It doesn't operate on magnetism. It operates on a system of, a ball bearing system, which I'll show in a bit. You can also open this particular one with a series of presses and also a fob option you can order. So this is the Noki, and if you know Morse, it's lined up. If you know Morse code, there's actually a series of long and short presses you can use to open it up if you don't happen to have your phone with you. But that's a bit of a pain. So let me open up the Noki app and see if it'll actually work. The biggest problem I have with the Noki is so far it's been a little bit problematic about being able to reprogram it and get the software to always work with it. Like right now you see I'm pressing this, and I should be able to open it up after it sees it. However, you notice it's not working. It has also the little sync issues. But it probably is the coolest lock up here as far as some of the extra features. I can assign more people. Currently, I'm the only user. I could send someone essentially an email that would allow them to have access to it. Also, it tells me when it's been unlocked and by who it's been unlocked by. And it also, if the person's phone happens to have a signal, geolocates where that person has opened that lock. Now, this is a feature that's going to be implemented in a few future TSA travel locks, which should be interesting to see. Unfortunately, it's not working perfectly right now. I'm going to power off my phone, which may waste a little time, but it may also allow me to get back inside that Noki again. Let me see. What do we got next? Pardon me, I just have to get my phone restarted. The biggest thing with these is the software bugs, and I really want to do more looking into the Android and iOS applications that are used to open these, because I think there might be some potential there. As far as physical destruction is concerned, that note there, there's a guy that goes by Bonsai Bill online who's done a ton of work on this recently. He posted the video. While it does have one ball bearing, he hasn't been able to get it easily popped with a hammer. There's a trick you can do on some ball bearing locks where you can hit it with a hammer. It will actually pop the ball bearings and compress enough to where you can get past the ball bearings and open the lock without actually really destroying the lock. This one, though, he pounded on it with a little hand sledge for quite a while and wasn't able to get it open. He eventually had to take a 2 horsepower, like an angle grinder, and was able to get it open. You can watch the video, it's pretty interesting to see. And he finally did get it open doing that, but he tried a whole bunch of things and it didn't work for him. Another one is for Master Lock. Everybody is familiar with Master Lock, probably. And this also tracks when it's unlocked and by who. You can assign rights to other people to be able to open the lock, which is nifty. And it doesn't use spring-loading locker dogs or ball bearings. It uses roller bars. And you can find more information out about it on their website. But let's see if my phone's finally back up. All right. Let's see if I can unlock this note with the phone now. All right. Press. This does not bode well for Mr. Note, does it? There's some reliability issues there. Bluetooth is on. Oh, see, it was there for just a second. I think physically, in many ways, the Note is kind of the neatest of them. I've dissected one of these things. The downside to it is the software is less than spectacular. And see, it's not seeing it. All right. Well, we'll mess with it later on. Let's move on to the Master Lock. Now, I think the Master Lock is a little bit more cloud-based. It seems to use a Master Lock password, and I'm thinking some information about it is registered online, and you can actually get, if you like lose the codes and so forth, get them back from Master Lock. But the Master Lock and the Note both have a mode. Well, Master Lock calls it not normal mode, I guess, and locker mode. And Note calls it like 1 or 2 step, where if you have your phone in your pocket and you just reach up and activate the lock, it would automatically unlock if it knows that the phone is within a certain distance. That could potentially be a problem, which we'll talk about in a bit. All right, it's ready to be opened. It sees them in range, and I open it up. It's currently open, and let's see if we can go into manage it. Manage the lock, and oh, wait a second. Not that it's particularly a private thing. Okay, I can manage the lock. I can change how you open it. Now, with the Note, I showed you how it was a series of presses. On this, you use the little dial pad if you don't have a phone for it to be able to open it up. You can add guests and so forth, and you can enable something called locker mode. In locker mode, what happens is if someone tries to unlock it, it's going to ask for confirmation on the phone before it actually tries to open it. You have to tap it to disable that, and then it will open automatically whenever the phone's in there. And I'll explain in a bit why there's reasons to do that. The final one of the locks I have and been playing with, I don't have any reviews on it because I can't get the thing to function right. The software is like almost completely unusable. I've gotten it open with the fob before, and I've gotten it to open with the TSA key. I'm not going to talk much about it because, well, it's a little travel lock. It's not particularly great. Yeah, right here it is. The problem with it is it uses, well, besides being physically, this kind of fell apart in my hands when I first got it. Okay, I might have been drinking a little bit that night when I first got it and started playing with it, but I mean, it didn't take much force at all for me to shatter the thing. And in theory, let's see if I can choose the right key. Since it uses the TSA keyways and all the TSA keys, well, if you own the lock, you can reproduce the key if you want to tear it apart. Since it does that, you can open the thing up and be able to, well, as you see, that just fell off. And now I got the thing open. And the cord just fell out on me. Sorry, EEE Touch. Nice try on some things, but the thing just fell apart on me on stage. I mean, I can't really recommend this thing. So I'm not going to talk about it much because I'm like, I could try to dive into the Bluetooth protocol and figure out, is it using a proper challenge response and all this, but I can just take a little brass key that I made by filing and open the thing. For those that don't know, the TSA keys all got leaked online. High-res, flatbed scanner images of them. And you've probably seen a bunch of articles that say if you see the key, you can reproduce it. The problem with the TSA keys on that is you can't always find the blank. I've been able to reproduce, great, I'm trying to think of who else has been doing. Night Owl's been able to produce the one pretty well. We're pretty sure that's a key blank from someplace in China. I think a tricircle. But he has to file down a American key blank to actually get down on the sides. The number 2 is easy to reproduce. I've been making out a bunch of TSA number 2s and handing them out to people. Kind of like challenge coins. I bought a key duplicator just for that. The 3 is essentially, trying to remember. The 3 is an odd-looking, like, triangular shape. So we haven't really produced that, but we can rake it open still. The 4 is essentially a little T-turning tool. It's like super simplistic. The 5 is, it's like a reverse the bleed master lock M2. I have a different talk out there that goes into all of these. And my talk is, well, when this video is posted, you can follow that link, or you just search for Iron Geek TSA. You'll see I've given that talk a few times. But basically, all these have been reproduced a lot other than the 006. The 007 is the most common one. We can't find a proper blank for it. If anybody finds a 007 blank that works, let me know. I once sort of trolled Masterlock by asking online, the locksmith needs to know what key blank to use to reproduce the key for this particular travel lock. And they said, to ensure the security of the TSA system, duplicate keys are not available. In which I started giggling madly because you can actually take a key from a different lock, file it down right, and be able to reproduce the key. A lock I have on order, but I haven't got yet, is the airbolt. I'm hoping these people do a better job. What was that? I hope these people do a better job than the previous TSA lock I mentioned. It's still going to have a TSA keyway on it. They're not sure if it's going to be a 007 or a 006 yet. Hopefully the 006. I can make open a 006. A friend of mine up in Canada showed me, well, he was not from Canada, but we were up in Canada at the time, showed me that it could be done. And after he was able to do it one time, I was able to do it. But it is a much more secure cord than the 007. And this one's going to be doing geolocation as well. And it has a proximity alarm. So if someone starts walking off with it, it'll hopefully alarm you. So if you have to leave your baggage someplace for a short amount of time. The geolocation thing, though, is crowdsourced. So the only way I could see that would work is if a bunch of other people happen to be using this exact same lock, and they happen to be passing by your lock, and goes, okay, I'll notify the airbolt servers that this particular lock is here. And I can see the usefulness in that. Like if you happen to leave your bag someplace, or if your baggage somehow did not get from whatever airport to the airport you're going to. But the whole crowdsourcing part of it, I'm not sure that's going to take off unless a lot of people buy this particular lock. Also, something you can't do with the previous TSA lock I mentioned is you can revoke TSA key access. So I can use it in my luggage. While I'm in the airport, I'll have the access on. When I get someplace else, I'll turn the access off. Though truthfully, unless your baggage is really, really tough, people are going to cut the lock off, or they're going to find a bunch of other ways in. Probably not using one of these keys unless they just want to be surreptitious about it, which I generally do. I generally go for non-destructive ways of entry just because that's more intriguing. You can always break something if you really want to. Of these locks up here, though, physically the only one I've really seen tested hardcore is that Noki. And short of an angle grinder, angle grinder may not be the right term. I haven't seen people get through it easily. The guy took a big set of bolt cutters to it and couldn't get through it. The wagers that he could probably he conjectures that he could have got through it if he had like some 6-foot bolt cutters. So you have a little leverage there. All right, physical flaws. Forget the electronics of these locks. They're still locks. So let's try some tried and true methods. Now, here's a diagram of a simple lock that uses spring-loaded locking dogs. Here's the shackle. Here's a little bit more terminology for you. This is a lever or crawl or locking dog. Also, sometimes it'd be an actuator or driver. I think I usually see that term used more if it's like a ball bearing lock. And here's the inner cylinder if it has a key. A lot of these locks don't have keys. Here's a little bit more lock terminology for you. These are the chambers on a normal pin tumbler lock, which doesn't apply to most of these locks. Actually, none of the locks up here. We have one lock up here as a wafer lock, which I'll get in a bit. If you ever go out there and start picking locks, the reason you can do that is those imperfections in the lock. These holes are not here drilled perfectly. Some will bind up before others. So if you apply a light bit of tension, turning the core, you can get a little ledge to form and get the driver pin. That's the blue pins here, to lock up just above the shear line. That's between the plug and the outer cylinder. And if you do that correctly, you can just turn the lock, because nothing will block you from turning the cylinder. Turning the plug. You can also just rake it, which is like pseudo-randomly trying to open it. Just put the proper pick in, well, something like a Bogota wave rake, vary your angle, and you're essentially simulating a bunch of different key cuts. If you're familiar with software fuzzing, it's kind of a similar concept, but in real life. This is a wafer lock. Now, that one that just fell out on me in my hand, that uses a wafer lock. Wafer locks are generally considered crappy. That's not always true. There are wafer locks that can be made fairly high security, but because of how cheap they are to produce, people use this method for a lot of cheap locks. Pin tumbler and wafer lock. When I say wafer lock, what happens is these little wafers normally are in a channel at the base of the lock, and you can't turn it. But when you put the proper key in, it lifts everything to the proper height, and you can turn it. And here's an example of a pin tumbler lock and a proper key going into it, and where it lines everything up to where the gap between the driver pin and the key pin are right there at the shear line, and you can turn it. A little bit more of pin tumbler locks. Basic picking technique. You just apply a little bit of tension to be able to get a ledge between the core and the cylinder, and you just kind of get the lock up on there. If you go outside and play around the Lockpick Village, you notice there's some clear, transparent locks you can take a look at and visually see how this is working. Oh, there's also things you can do to make them a little more security, but this is probably beyond the scope of this talk, since most of these, well, I haven't seen one of the Bluetooth locks yet that takes a pin tumbler. Now, there's no keyway in any of these locks but the one that fell apart in my hand, but there's other ways to get into some of them. A classic way to get into a lot of locks is if it uses spring-loaded locking dogs, it's to shim them. Who's ever seen shimming? Okay, shimming is essentially when they had those spring-loaded locking dogs I mentioned before, that can be pushed out of the way. Instead of using ball bearings, which you can't do this on. So let me demonstrate this. This is a $60 or so quick lock. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take these little shims. I cut these out of something that is sold online as Neomeat plastic. It's very tough plastic. And what you do is you wedge them in here and you try to shim your way past those locking dogs by pushing those locking dogs out of the way. Now, hopefully I'll be able to do this without shredding them. Normally, people use metal shims, but these plastic ones are easier for me to carry in a wallet and such. And so this is like a $60, $70 lock that uses Bluetooth and RFID to open it, or NFC. Yeah, physically, yeah, a quick lock, do a little better next time. Now, I can't do that, however, on this master lock, nor this Noki. This Noki uses a little ball bearing system. Now, this isn't a Bluetooth lock, but to give you an idea how the ball bearing system works, take a look at this little tag out lock. This lock is made out of plastic on the outside. It's meant for tagging out electric panels. Those kind of locks are generally brightly colored so people know that someone's working on stuff. If you see those locks I have out there with smiley faces on them, those are tag out locks also. While the outside this is plastic, the insides are actually very good. There's a bunch of things, there's a bunch of spool pins. It's like a 5-pin lock, and it uses ball bearings so I can't shim it. This is one of those types of locks I mentioned. Some people talk about you can hit with a hammer and occasionally get things to compress enough to where you can actually pull past the ball bearings. But I'm going to take out this core. This core is connected to the actuator by that little groove. And let me put the ball bearing back where it goes. The way most of these locks with ball bearings work is the actuator sits in there. And when it gets turned, this little space opens up to where the ball bearings can fall into that space. I really need to put a transparent side on this. You never notice most of the transparent locks you end up finding are not ball bearing locks. If it's lined up like that, though, there's enough room for the shackle to come out. If you get the point. But if it's like this, there's no room for the shackle to get out. And that's what some of these electronic locks are doing. And let me try to get that back in there. Yeah, I think getting this all back together is going to be, let me hold my balls in my hand. Put this back down here. I got a pin loose. All right, you know what? We're just going to sit you all in there, and we're going to put you back after a while, and I'll get it back before the next talk. There we go. But that's a ball bearing system. And the Noki, if I'll show you the inside of it, is a little different. By the way, you can also make these shims out of aluminum cans. You can order them online. I just happen to make them out of plastic. Now, the Noki, as I mentioned before, has a ferromagnetic core. In theory, that little actuator inside of it, well, it's not core, is not the right term, but the actuator inside of it is ferromagnetic. And one of my friends, Legion 303, says he got his Noki open with a magnet. I have not been able to replicate that. He also broke his lock in the process of doing it. I know Bonsai Bill was not able to replicate doing it with a magnet. He even tried putting in a bunch of magnets on a drill and having it alternate and have it spin and try to screw with it. He even put it on a degausser and tried to mess with it. I think he did end up breaking the lock's electronics, but he wasn't able to open it. But Legion has found a way to open his with one. It broke in the process. So I'm not sure I want to loan him mine to figure out exactly what motion you have to use. But you can get big old powerful magnets. Like this is the magneto from a company called Sparrow. I don't get kickbacks from them, but I really like Sparrow's lockpicks. That's what I use when I'm in competition, generally speaking. They make really good stuff. But they sell a magneto, and there's certain locks. Have you seen those like push button locks? There's a certain variety of those that you can put a strong magnet to the side of it, and it will pull the innards out of the way, and you can open the door. I have not had success opening these locks door with magnets as of yet. Now, as I mentioned before, there's also roller balls. And these are a little bit like ball bearings, but instead of being balls, these are little roller balls. And when the electronics pulls this little piece out of the way, there's now room for these roller balls to get out of the way of the shackle and the shackle to open up. This right here is that master lock I was showing earlier. And truthfully, this master lock is a beast. It seems pretty strong. I don't know how its shackle compares to others, but here you go. One of the issues with it, though, is potentially if you can get all this rubber out of the way without anybody noticing, you can actually essentially get the lock apart. Let me open the thing up. If you were to peel this all up and not make people notice, you can actually drill out everything on it. So you can drill out the little rivets and then be able to get to the inside of it and show it off. But instead of opening this thing up on stage, save a little time and just show you this picture, which I took a while back, of the innards of it. I made a bad mistake when I was trying to open it one time. I didn't realize it had to be unlocked before I get to the battery compartment. I cut my finger on a knife as I was trying to pry it open. But you can't shim this one either, just like the Noki. Now, one thing I didn't mention about some of these locks is if you run out of power, like the obvious question is, if you don't have any power anymore, how do you get into the lock? Well, in the case of this little master lock, you can hook a 9-volt to it, and that will temporarily power it so you can open the lock. This one I mentioned before is USB, so you just use a USB cable and charge it back up. This one, if you unscrew this, there's a little coin cell spot where you can put a coin cell and be able to open it up. On this thing that just fell apart in my hand, I'm not really sure, and I don't really care. I ordered it on a lock. I figured it might be a cool extra thing to look at, but they really haven't paid much attention to the physical of it. Of these locks, definitely look more at the Noki, so the software is a little buggy, and look at the Master Lock. Master Lock, that's the outdoor version I have there. Master Lock also has a smaller indoor version, which you should probably look at. And the innards of it are kind of cool, but we'll open that up maybe at a different time. Maybe you want to see it outside sometime, because I don't know if you'll be able to see it all properly from this camera. But This one's already been all opened up where I just had to drill out the rivets. And I'm conjecturing there might be a way of doing that to make it non-obvious that you did that and still be able to open the lock. But it is technically a destructive form of entry. Well, technically not. It's a destructive form of entry. Now, this gets me to the electronic flaws and so forth. And this is where I need to do a lot more work. People sometimes say, well, I haven't had the time to do that. That's never true. You always have the time to do something. You just choose to do something else instead. Priorities come up, and I haven't dived enough into electronic flaws and software flaws as I could. This is where I'd like to ask the community to help me out and try some of these things. I'll be bringing these to various cons with me. So you see me at a con, you have an idea for an attack, and you already looked at the APK files and whatnot and seen, I wonder if this will work. Well, I hope to have these with me. So here's all the APKs for all 4 of these locks. You can just download them using APK Pure, and then if you want to, you can compile them with this particular part of the Java decompiler's website. And then you can just look through the source code. My hope is that by looking at how they do keying and where you put the passwords, you'll be able to create your own brute forcer. Because, for instance, I mentioned when you first synced up with the quick lock, it was just a password of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And as I recall, I think you could only enter numbers. So the key space for that, assuming they're not doing anything to keep you from brute forcing, isn't that huge. Now, I know from a physical standpoint, they're doing a few things to keep you from brute forcing. Like if you keep trying the lock combinations and you're failing, eventually it will stop letting you into combinations for a while. And it also notes that you failed inside the application when you try to connect to the lock again. So they do that maybe for the hardware, but do they do it on the software side of things? And that's something I still need to look into. Also, I want to look into replicating the signals being sent to it. I actually got contacted by a developer from one of these companies, and I got some pretty good assurances that they're doing the right thing behind the scenes. But let's say it was just, you could just do a replay attack. A replay attack is where you listen what's going out on the wireless and go, okay, I'll just resend the exact same thing. And when you do, the device reacts as you'd expect it to. It doesn't do a challenge response system. These locks all use Bluetooth low energy. And the idea behind Bluetooth low energy is you can require less power to keep things running. Both of these, well, the Noki runs off of a little coin cell. The Master Lock, I don't know what kind of cell you'd consider that, but it's a very small form factor cell. The Quick Lock uses a little internal battery that charges via USB. But supposedly all these locks will keep running for at least a year without having to do anything with the battery. So that requires very low energy. I'm going to be playing around with the Ubluetooth 1. It's a little device for sniffing and doing various things with Bluetooth. So I'm hoping to be able to do something of that. Also, I know Adafruit, a company that sells all sorts of hobbyist electronics, has a Bluetooth low energy sniffing device. Not sure if it does replay or not. That I plan on looking into. But the thing is getting the time to actually mess around with these locks. Especially since, well, physically, at least some of them you can get through other ways. Now, when I mentioned challenge response, in case anybody doesn't know how that works, I actually gave a bit of a talk last year that we talked about this someplace. Some of the earliest challenge responses might have been things like, soldiers saying who goes there and someone replying back with a password, and if they had the right password, you could let them on through. The way that works in the electronic world is you open up communications with the lock, you negotiate with it, it sends you back a challenge nonce, and based on a shared secret that you both have, you respond to the challenge. But the cryptography involved between you never actually send that secret across the line. So, in theory, a person just replaying that will not work unless this lock has always sent out a nonce and you send back the expected reply. Now, if it ever replays that exact same nonce again, yes, you might be able to crack it. Also, if you see the nonce and it's a real easy password to guess, you might be able to crack it. If anybody's ever cracked NTLM version 2 hash it, it's not even a hash, challenge responses going across the network using something like responded to first get them and then throwing them to John or Hashcat, a similar process might be possible, but I need to play with it a whole lot more. If it gets the right response, it opens up. Another idea I'm thinking about looking into, and I don't know if anybody makes them, is there such a thing as a Bluetooth repeater? Has anybody seen a Bluetooth repeater? Anything even like that as an electronic project? Okay, I might want to look into building one then. People have apparently been researching and getting into cars. You know how cars have those little immobilizers and they have to see an RFID chip or some kind of electronics inside your key before it will open up. Apparently some people have had success making a repeater that amplifies signals. So you try to get in the car, it doesn't open normally because you don't have the proper electronics with you. But this amplifier and repeater will take the signal it sends, then send it into the house that someone's in. You're in the driveway. They get a signal back from the device inside. It sends it to your repeater sends it back to the car, and it's able to open the car or start the car's engine. And this little repeater system has apparently been used to do this sort of hijinks. I'm wondering if something similar is possible with these locks. Now, some of these locks, as I showed you before, there was like locker mode and non-locker mode on the master lock. And Noki has a 1 or 2 step system where if you're just close by with your phone, you just have to activate it and it automatically sees your phone and opens. Problem with that is, imagine you're inside the house, this is outside in your shed, someone uses some kind of amplifier, it doesn't have to know the secret, it just takes the nonce that is sent from the lock, sends it with extra power to wherever your device is, it's sensitive enough to hear what your device says and then passes it back. I don't know if anything like this has ever been done with Bluetooth though, so this is purely conjecture. Probably what I'm going to have the most luck in tackling these is making a proxy app and seeing what it's communicating. Because when you use these devices, especially the master lock, it seems, it's talking out to the cloud and it's exchanging something with master lock. If that exchange can be sniffed and some secrets can be gained from it, there might be a way of intercepting this and getting into it. The Noki also, it tracks what location you've been at. I'm pretty sure it doesn't have the memory inside of it for tracking that. So there's some communications going on with Noki as well. I need to spend more time looking into that. Anyway, my talk is fairly short because I need to do a lot more research on this. If anybody's experts on the subject of Bluetooth protocols and decompiling, reverse engineering APK files, I'd appreciate some more information. Now, if you're interested in more details about locks in general, here's some great links. Lockwiki, if you want to know about this particular brand of lock, what features it has, it's a great site. Or it also has great information on various types of attacks. Limiting Fools is a lockpicking organization, sort of like Tool. Skylar Town, who I mentioned before, does talks on lock history, has his own website, which you check out. If you're just interested in lockpicking in general, check out Lockpicking 101. Reddit's forums on lockpicking are also good. Tool US has a lot of information about lockpicking, especially to answer the question of, is this legal or not in where I'm at? Most states is what they call, I'm trying to think what the term is now. Most states are not prima facie. Prima facie is basically when if you have lockpicks on you, it's automatically assumed that you intended to commit a crime. Most states are not like that. Most of them, it's only an extra charge if you're caught carrying them or using them during the commission of a crime. They have to show evidence that you intended to use them illegally. There's a few states like Tennessee where technically by direct reading the law, it seems illegal to have lockpicks unless you're a locksmith. But my understanding of the law, as they meant it to be, is mostly to keep people from, well, it's kind of a protectionist racket for local locksmiths. But anyway, go to the Tool site. They actually spent money on lawyers to go and look at the laws of various states and figure out where it's legal and illegal. Also, you want more information on lockpicking, you just do a Google Doc for my website and the words lockpicking. I have a bunch of talks on various subjects around lockpicking. One other thing, quick announcement, a bunch of cons you should check out if you enjoy Show Me Con. Check out DerbyCon if you happen to have gotten a ticket. We sold out in like 12 hours, so if you really want to go, check out, look on Twitter about 2 weeks out, and you'll be able to find it. I know it's a little short notice for people getting hotels and so forth, but generally about 2 weeks out or more, maybe a month out, you'll find someone selling a ticket because they found that they can't go. Louisville InfoSec I record every year. It's ran by the local ISSA. Recommend check out Skydog in Nashville, Tennessee. It's a lot of fun. GurCon is up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Also a lot of fun. Very similar feel to here at Show Me Con. Just a little colder. Circle City Con. It's also a lot of fun. That happened just a couple days ago. I came straight from there to here. Unfortunately, next year they overlap with Show Me Con. So that's going to be a pain, but I plan on still making at least a little time at both of them. And finally, well, Show Me Con, you're here, so you know about it. NolaCon was a whole lot of fun down in New Orleans because the content was good, hanging out with people was great, and in your off time when no one's speaking, you're hanging out in the French Quarter in New Orleans. I mean, yeah, as Mike Poore said, Bourbon Street smells like fermented human, but you go off Bourbon Street just a little bit, things smell better, awesome food, cool antique shops, just a ton of fun. And finally, and I have plenty of time because it looks like I have, plenty of time. Are there any questions? Or ideas, for that matter? Yes. I've seen someone else try that, at least on the Noki, and as I understand it, it basically broke it. Just overpowering it, you can break the lock, but it's unlikely from electronics, or from just overpowering it, you're actually going to be able to open it. More than likely what's going to happen is you're just going to fry the electronics and you'll have to open it. Well, you just have to cut the lock off at that point. Other questions? Or ideas for that matter? Yes? Not as of yet. I want to look at them more. I'm trying to think what it's called. There was a smart lock system. I want to say it was called the Evo from Kwikset. And I know it went Bluetooth. The reason I'm doing Padlocks is because Padlocks are way, way cheaper, and I can carry the cons with me a lot easier. The problem with at least the version of the Kivo, that's what it was, from Kwikset, was the physical lock on it was fairly non-robust. People were able to put essentially like a screwdriver with arms on it into the lock, crank it, break the lock, turn it back, and the key would still function, but what it did was it sheared off these little wafers on the rekeying system. The Kivo uses a smart key system where you can rekey it to any key you want, or any, key of that particular blank that you want. But the problem is it's a little bit fragile. There's a way of breaking that and putting it back, and someone may or may not notice it was broken. It's not as obvious as if someone drilled it out. Let's put it that way. So that's the biggest problem. To my knowledge, people haven't defeated it electronically. But physically, at least the version that was out a few years ago was not very good. Maybe they've corrected that since. I honestly don't know. The problem is I don't want to drop $200 on it to find out. Actually, I do want to drop $200 on it and find out, but I haven't as of yet. But if Kwikset wants to send me one, that'd be awesome. Any other questions or ideas? Anyone? Bueller? Bueller? All right, well, I'm going to be around the con for, the next few hours, since that's all the cons that's left. I thank you very much for your time.